Hartlepool, the town that hung a monkey. But did they really? I don't know, probably they were pretty weird back then. They ever elected the town football team mascot as mayor 3 times, so I guess anything's possible really. But I'm here for ifs, buts and maybes. I'm here for facts and figures and the harsh realities of life and death in the universe. In this film I'll be showing you around the town and all the things you can see and do, and hopefully a few of them you didn't know and you'll learn a thing or two. Let's go. There are obviously many things you can do here in Hartlepool, from watching movies, learning about the maritime history of the town, going shopping, going for a fancy bite to eat. But still, Hartlepool is a great place with many reasons to come here, and we'll start by showing off the famous Hartlepool Maritime Experience. The Hartlepool Museum of the Royal Navy and the Maritime Experience, or the Historic Quay for short, has been a tourist attraction in Hartlepool for many years and still serves as one of the main reasons people visit the small town. There are many different attractions to see at the museum, ranging from tours of the museum and all the Victorian/Napoleonic shops and homes, the gun firings, the children's play ship, fighting ships and many more. Visitors can participate in special viewings of the buildings and the shows put on here, like the gun firings, in which staff in the museum fire actual pistols, rifles and cannons from the 1800s. The entire area has been modelled to look as though the visitors are actually in a Victorian era dock area, with shops and homes taken straight from the streets of Hartlepool. While the attractions are all well and good, the main reason people visit the museum is to step aboard the beautiful ship, the HMS Trincomalee, the oldest still floating warship in Europe. The ship was ordered to be built from teak due to a shortage of oak in 1812 in Bombay, India, and was then sent on almost a 180-year journey across almost half the world, being renamed twice before finally ending up in Hartlepool's dock area somehow, where it would sit for the foreseeable future. The ship has undergone many repairs and has had parts replaced and changed over this time, creating a divide between historians as to whether it is still the same ship that was built in Bombay, or if it has changed too much and is still being debated today. The ship has since been altered to make it safer for the public, since being in the dock, with the cannons being filled in so they can't be fired anymore, and fire alarms and lights have been added to make it safer and easier to walk around. I'm not entirely sure the King's alarm system was fitted on the ship when it was first built, but yeah, it got modernised, right? Another great attraction of Hartlepool is the football team, who still somehow get supporters. One of the most famous parts of the football club is their mascot, Hangus the Monkey, who made his debut in 1999 and has since become a staple part of Hartlepool's history. He was originally played by James Orton, a huge fan of the team, and first appeared on the TV show Soccer AM with none other than Robbie Fowler. After James's career as the man behind the monkey ended, Stuart Drummond, the legend himself, took over as Hangus and made the character what he is today. During his time as Hangus, Stuart would be sent off the pitch during performances not once, but 3 times. Once in Scunthorpe when a steward took offence to him leading the Hartlepool fans in song, again for simulating a sex act towards a female steward, and a 3rd time for playing with a blow-up doll, but luckily no charges were pressed for the final removal. Michael Evans is the current Hangus actor and has been for 5 whole seasons. Who knows what the future holds for Hangus and the Hartlepool United football team. Hopefully wins. Born in 1973, Stuart Drummond was the first and only mayor of Hartlepool. After studying at Stockton University and getting an HND in business and languages, he took a drastic career change and became the football mascot, and during this time he was loved by most all of the fans of Hartlepool Football Club. Around the start of 2002, he approached Hartlepool chairman Ken Hodcroft with a publicity idea and asked for £500 and was allowed to stand for re-election as the mayor of Hartlepool under the guise of Hangus the Monkey. It was all one big setup by the football club and intended mainly as a joke and a publicity stunt, offering free bananas to school children if he won, never actually intending for him to win. And yet somehow Hangus managed to win the election, if only by a small margin. This, obviously, angered the MP for Hartlepool, Peter Mandelson, who promptly forbade Stuart from wearing the Hangus costume. His win was met with widespread hilarity and garnered attention from not just Hartlepool or even England, with Canada's National Post running the headline, "Monkey gains mayoralty, regains human form," which is actually genuinely funny. In 2005, he was re-elected a second time with almost double the votes from the first campaign, and was elected a third time in 2009. After his time as mayor ended, he was succeeded by Stephen Ackers-Belcher, who stepped in as a ceremonial mayor until they fully integrated the cabinet system. Now, it's great that we talk about the celebrities and the famous people from Hartlepool, but what about the average Joe? Or in this case, Alan. John Allen Illingworth is an 85-year-old who has lived in Hartlepool his whole life, fought during a number of wars, has had more jobs than you've had warm dinners, and can play a killer flute. I asked him what his life has been like and what he's done throughout it, and what he's going to do now. So Alan, what jobs have you had? Which did you have the longest? What was your favourite?
Well, I've had two jobs mainly in my lifetime. Working life was very nearly in two equal halves. The first half of my working life I was a sea pilot, and the second half was assistant harbour master with the Port Authority. They're the two main jobs that I had, but in order to do the second job I did have to have sea experience, which meant going off to sea for a short while to get qualify as eventually as a master mariner in order to do the harbour master's job. So they're the two main jobs that I had. I liked the pilotage job, sea pilotage. You've got a tremendous amount of job satisfaction when you successfully completed a job. It was a very difficult job, demanded a lot of experience, and it was good when you knew you'd done a good job and the ship was safely brought into port or taken out of port and everything went well. With the harbour master's job, it was a different setup altogether. It was office desk bound and mainly an administration job. But yes, I enjoyed both jobs, but the best job satisfaction came from as a sea pilot.
What was it like living during the war?
Very difficult at times, and I was only 7 years old during the war years when the war started, and I can remember very clearly having to dig a massive hole in the back garden for the Anderson shelter to be put into the ground, and I can remember sleeping some nights when the raids were very regular and slept in the shelters all night long. I can remember hearing gunfire. I can remember feeling the ground shudder when the bombs were dropped and people died in houses that were bombed very near to where I lived, only a matter of 300-400 metres away from where I was living. And it was frightening, very frightening at times. You see these things on the pictures nowadays and you get a vague idea of what they must feel like when you see it on televisions and places like that. But when you experience it, it's very, very different and it can be very frightening. Food-wise, well, we were very severely rationed, but we didn't starve. We weren't in a starving situation. My father had an allotment, and we used to do all the gardening, and every bit of your gardens was given over to producing vegetables and also working up in the allotments, and that's when I first developed my love of gardening, which I've had for the rest of my life. But I started gardening at 7 years old, and I've loved it ever since. But yes, during the war years it was frightening at times, but nevertheless we came through it, and even though a lot of other people in the town didn't. The town did suffer quite badly, but nevertheless we came through it, and it was an experience.
What do you think about the story of the monkey hanging?
Well, it's a story, isn't it? It's a legend. It's always good for a laugh and good for a joke. We're not the only place in the world that has a monkey hanging story. There was other places as well that have all over the world that I've heard of that have a very similar story of hanging a monkey and for all sorts of different reasons, but they didn't understand the monkey. But it's good for a laugh.
Do you believe it?
No, of course I don't.
So there you have it, just a few of the great things that you can see and do in Hartlepool, as well as a few small things you may not have known about the town itself. Thank you very much for your time.